You think you're broke because the money isn't there. That's not the problem. The problem is you've convinced yourself that someone else locked the door, that your empty bank account is a crime scene where the world played villain and you played victim. And you cling to that story like a life raft because it's easier than drowning in the truth that you are the architect of your own collapse. Look around. Everyone has an excuse perfectly polished, rehearsed until it sounds like wisdom. Wrong city, wrong economy, wrong parents, wrong decade. These aren't explanations. They're psychological shields, protecting you from a reality so vicious it would shatter your self-image if you stared at it directly. Because once you admit that poverty isn't something done to you, but something you actively maintain through 10,000 micro-decisions disguised as survival, once you accept that your life is exactly what your tolerance allows it to be, then the illusion dies. And with it, your permission to stay small. What destroys most people isn't catastrophe. It's Tuesday. It's the relentless, unremarkable grind of ordinary resistance that exposes who can actually function when the dopamine runs out. The world doesn't need to attack you. It just needs to apply consistent, unglamorous pressure and wait. Wait for you to interpret that pressure as a sign you chose wrong. Wait for you to start scanning the horizon for something easier. And when you finally break, when you abandon the path because it stopped feeling like validation, the world doesn't even notice. It just moves on to the next person willing to stay. Because here's what you've misunderstood about how reality actually operates. Pressure is not punishment. It's a filtration system. Every domain worth entering, every arena that produces actual power, runs on resistance by design, not to stop you, to reveal who cannot continue. The moment you label that resistance as injustice, as evidence of a rigged game, you've already lost. You've traded agency for narrative, and narrative doesn't build wealth. It builds resentment. And if you're still watching this, if something in your chest tightened when I said you're the architect of your own collapse, then you're closer to breakthrough than you think. Don't leave yet. What I'm about to show you next will separate you from 97% of people who will rationalize their way back to comfort before this video ends. Stay. The modern world has quietly engineered an entire generation incapable of sustained discomfort. Comfort isn't just normalized, it's medicalized. Boredom is treated as dysfunction, criticism as trauma, delay as abuse. And so you've been conditioned to interpret any friction as malfunction, any strain as signal that you need to pivot, adjust, escape. Your nervous system has been trained to collapse under conditions that previous generations considered baseline existence. You want expansion without tension, growth without cost, reward while scrolling, and because of that, you will never be wealthy. Not because you lack intelligence, you lack durability. Durability is the capacity to remain effective when everything in you is screaming to stop. When you're unseen, unrewarded, uncertain whether your effort even matters. That ability, that specific tolerance for sustained, unremarkable strain, is the rarest psychological trait in the modern age. And without it, every strategy you try will eventually encounter a moment where motivation evaporates and discipline becomes the only bridge between who you are and who you claim you want to be. And that bridge will collapse because you've spent your entire life avoiding the very conditions that build it. The broke individual designs his entire existence around minimizing tension. He curates his environment for emotional comfort. He abandons anything that demands more than he feels like giving. And over time, his world contracts to match his tolerance. He mistakes this contraction for wisdom, for boundaries, for self-care. It's none of those things. It's surrender dressed in therapeutic language. The individual who accumulates actual power operates from a completely inverted framework. He assumes discomfort is permanent. He stops asking why things are hard and starts asking how to function while they are. He builds routines that operate independently of how he feels. He constructs identity around endurance, not emotion, and this divergence compounds silently year after year, until one man is navigating environments that would psychologically destroy the other within 72 hours. Same species, different conditioning. This is why most people stay exactly where they are. Not because they lack ambition. Ambition is cheap. Everyone has it. What they lack is behavioral alignment. Their daily habits betray their stated desires. They prioritize feeling good today over being powerful tomorrow. And then they're shocked when tomorrow arrives and nothing has changed. Here's the part that will make you uncomfortable. If you were truly ready for wealth, your life would already look structurally different. Not perfect, not easy, but fundamentally different. Your relationship with discomfort would be different. Your excuses would embarrass you when you heard yourself say them out loud. Your tolerance for staying in unrewarding situations while you build leverage would be higher. Because wealth is not attracted to wishful thinking. It's attracted to structure, to people who behave like they're worthy long before they receive confirmation that they are. They're harder to rattle, slower to react emotionally, less dependent on external validation, more capable of staying motionless while everyone around them panics. And when the broke see this, they don't recognize it as conditioning. They call it privilege. They call it luck. They call it arrogance. Because accepting what it actually is would require them to confront how much of their life has been spent running from discomfort disguised as self-awareness. Until that illusion collapses, nothing else matters. You can study strategy until you're fluent in theory. You can collect skills like trading cards. But when pressure arrives, and pressure always arrives, it will expose who you actually are. And who you actually are is someone who retreats. The world doesn't withhold wealth out of cruelty. It withholds it out of indifference. It rewards those who can endure what others cannot. And once you understand that, once you truly internalize that the game is about who can stay present under strain, excuses stop working. Complaints sound childish. The search for shortcuts ends. Because you realize the problem was never external. It was who you became under pressure. And until that changes, no amount of information will save you. Now let's talk about quitting. Because quitting is not a decision. It's a reflex. And reflexes reveal what you've been training yourself to do when discomfort exceeds your tolerance. Weak people don't quit because something is impossible. They quit because it stopped feeling good. The moment effort becomes unrewarding, the moment progress slows, the moment certainty dissolves, they exit. And this exit is rarely dramatic. It's quiet, rationalized, wrapped in language that sounds strategic. I'm pivoting. I'm being realistic. I'm cutting my losses early. But underneath the justification, it's the same pattern. Pressure equals retreat. And here's what makes quitting so psychologically destructive. Each time you abandon something because difficulty arrived, you're not just losing time. You're reinforcing a neural pathway. Strain equals exit. Do this enough times and it hardens into identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who finishes. You become someone who tries. And trying is safe. Trying preserves the ego. Because if you never finish, you never have to confront results. You can live forever in the space of potential, where failure is always someone else's fault and success is always just one more pivot away. The modern world celebrates this as flexibility, as adaptability, as exploration. But it's not exploration. It's avoidance. It's the fastest possible way to guarantee you never develop mastery in anything. Because depth requires time. Leverage requires depth. Wealth requires leverage. And if you're constantly jumping from opportunity to opportunity, you remain shallow. You accumulate experiences, not power. You collect beginnings, not outcomes. You never stay long enough for competence to compound. And compounding is everything. Because every system rewards those who stay through the middle. The unglamorous, unrewarding, invisible middle, where knowledge becomes intuition, where effort becomes efficiency, where chaos becomes structure. Quitting resets you to zero every single time, and the cost is invisible at first. You think you're being smart, you think you're cutting losses, but what you're actually doing is cutting yourself off right before returns begin. Most rewards are delayed on purpose. Delay is the barrier that keeps the uncommitted out. It's the economic moat protecting those who stayed. And if you can't tolerate delay, you will never access what's on the other side of it. This is why discipline is not optional. Discipline is not about happiness. It was never designed to make you happy. It exists to give you control, And control is the foundation of power. The broke seek happiness first. They design their lives around feeling good. But feelings are unstable. When feelings dictate action, consistency collapses. The disciplined individual accepts temporary discomfort in exchange for long-term authority over himself. This is the trade. Quitting feels relieving in the moment. Tension disappears. Responsibility lifts. Comfort returns. But comfort is expensive. Every retreat trains your nervous system to fear strain. And over time, even small challenges start feeling overwhelming. Your life becomes fragile. The powerful experience discomfort and stay anyway. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand the cost of escape. They remain when progress is slow. They remain when feedback is negative. They remain when results are unclear. This ability, this capacity to stay when others leave, is the real competitive advantage. Because quitting also destroys confidence. Each abandoned attempt becomes evidence against you. You begin to expect failure. You lower your standards preemptively. You aim beneath your potential because your history has taught you that you won't last. And this becomes self-reinforcing. Poverty feeds on itself. The disciplined individual does not rely on motivation. Motivation fluctuates. It's unreliable. He relies on structure. Routines replace emotion. Systems replace willpower. The question stops being, "Do I feel like it?" and becomes, "Is this what I do?" When quitting is removed as an option, everything changes. Behavior shifts. Creativity increases. Problem-solving sharpens. You stop asking whether something will work and start asking how to make it work. This is where power begins to form. And if this is resonating, if you're recognizing patterns in yourself you've been avoiding, then do something about it. Subscribe, not because I need you to, because that micro-commitment, that tiny signal to yourself that you're willing to stay engaged with discomfort, that you're choosing signal over noise, is practice for every bigger commitment you'll need to make later. Don't just consume this, commit to it. Now here's what most people never understand about the path to power. Every path passes through the same terrain. The scenery changes, the industry differs, but the structure is identical, and those who reach the top recognize it immediately. Those who fail never understand where they actually died. Every journey begins with blind optimism. You're protected by ignorance. The future feels generous. Progress seems inevitable. Effort feels light because expectations are delusional. This phase is necessary. It gets you moving, but it's also a trap. Because soon, very soon, optimism collapses. Reality introduces friction. Results slow. Complexity emerges. What once felt simple reveals hidden layers. This is informed pessimism, and this is where 90% of people turn back. They misinterpret this moment as failure. They say the timing is wrong, the market is saturated, the competition is unfair, the opportunity was overhyped. These explanations sound intelligent, but they're emotional exits dressed as analysis. Difficulty is not proof of error. It's proof of contact with reality. This middle phase, this valley, is what separates amateurs from operators. It's called the Valley of Death, not because it kills everyone, because it kills illusions. The ordinary mistake struggle for misalignment. They believe that if something were right, it would feel easier. This belief is fatal. Nothing valuable feels easy once understanding replaces ignorance. The path is not wrong. You are simply no longer protected by naivety. And those who survive this phase do not do so through enthusiasm. They do so through discipline. They stop seeking validation from early results and start focusing on execution. They trade emotion for process. Eventually, if you stay, something shifts. Confusion declines. Patterns become visible. Effort becomes more efficient. Progress resumes, not because the path softened, because you hardened. This phase is inaccessible to quitters. It exists beyond the point where most people leave. Mastery is protected by boredom, frustration, and delayed reward. Only those who tolerate these costs are allowed entry. The valley is not a test of intelligence. It's a test of endurance. The weak flee because they demand reassurance before committing further. They want proof before paying the price. The powerful accept that proof comes after persistence. not before it. This is why opportunity hoppers never win. They restart the cycle endlessly, chasing the high of blind optimism while avoiding the responsibility of mastery. They're addicted to beginnings, because beginnings don't require competence, endings do. And the world does not reward starters, it rewards finishers. Once you grasp this structure, quitting becomes illogical. You stop asking, "Is this worth it?" and start asking, "Am I willing to pay the price long enough to reach mastery?" Most people aren't, and that's why most people remain ordinary. The valley is not cruel, it's precise. It doesn't discriminate. It applies the same pressure to everyone. The difference is not the path, it's the person walking it. Now let's address something even more insidious than quitting: the need for permission. Because power does not coexist with hesitation. The moment you ask for permission, you reveal something fatal. You don't trust yourself to decide, and if you don't trust yourself, no structure of power will ever trust you either. Seeking advice is often disguised as prudence, but usually it's fear wearing the costume of responsibility. When you ask others what you should do with your life, your money, your direction, you're not gathering wisdom. You're outsourcing authority, and authority, once outsourced, rarely returns. You become condemned to live inside the limits of those you consult. You inherit their caution, their anxieties, their ceilings. Even when advice is well-intentioned, it's filtered through their failures, regrets, and untested assumptions. Consensus does not produce clarity. It produces paralysis. The more opinions you collect, the less decisive you become. Conflicting viewpoints cancel each other out, leaving you frozen. Eventually, doing nothing feels safer than choosing wrong. This is how ambition rots, not through defeat, through delay. The broke believe permission reduces risk. The powerful understand it eliminates momentum. History does not belong to those who asked for consensus. It belongs to those who acted with conviction while others hesitated. Every meaningful advance disrupts existing comfort. This is why approval is rarely given for decisions that matter. If everyone supports your move, it's almost certainly harmless. And harmless decisions do not alter outcomes. The person who will rule does not seek reassurance. He seeks alignment with his values, his standards, his future self. He develops internal authority that does not require applause. This is not arrogance, it's sovereignty. When you rely on external approval, your confidence becomes conditional. It rises and falls with feedback. Praise inflates you, criticism paralyzes you. Over time, you lose the ability to act independently. You become reactive, not strategic. Those who accumulate power understand a simple law. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Waiting to feel certain before acting is a luxury of the timid. Certainty is the reward of those already in motion. Most advice is not based on knowledge, it's based on fear. People project their own limitations onto you and call it caution. They warn you away from risks they never had the courage to take. If you listen long enough, you adopt their restraints as your own. Power demands separation. It requires standing alone long enough to establish a new reality. Those who cannot tolerate isolation will never lead. The person who chooses himself accepts the cost. He understands that conviction will be misunderstood, that decisions will be questioned, that support will arrive late, after results appear. This doesn't bother him. He's not performing for approval. He's executing strategy. Asking permission is a habit, and like all habits, it trains the nervous system. The more you ask, the weaker your internal authority becomes. Eventually, a line must be drawn. Either you decide your direction or others will decide it for you. There is no neutral position. The person who rules does not wait to be chosen. He acts. Reality adjusts. And those who hesitated spend the rest of their lives explaining why they almost did the same. Let's talk about where most people waste their leverage before they even have any. The broke dream of multiplying money. The powerful build the ability to create it. This distinction is rarely understood and almost never respected. People want returns without transformation. They search for leverage in markets because they lack leverage in themselves. They believe money is the problem when reality, competence is. Chasing investments before building capacity is not strategy. It's delusion. Markets do not reward hope. They reward skill, discipline, timing, emotional control. These qualities are not purchased. They're forged through experience. Someone who cannot consistently earn will not suddenly become wealthy by attempting to multiply what they barely control. Multiplication amplifies whatever is already there. If your discipline is weak, it amplifies weakness. If your judgment is poor, it accelerates loss. The broke misunderstand return on investment. They measure it only in numbers. The powerful measure it in identity. The highest ROI available is not in assets. It's in the person you become. Skills compound faster than capital. Character compounds longer than markets. A capable individual can lose everything and rebuild. An incompetent one cannot protect even inheritance. Money does not respect those who do not respect themselves. This is why the early pursuit of markets is so often a distraction. It allows people to feel productive without confronting their deficiencies. They refresh charts, watch trends, chase signals, mistaking activity for progress. Meanwhile, the fundamentals remain weak. The powerful invert this order. They invest aggressively in skills that increase earning power. They buy proximity to those ahead of them. They seek mentorship, repetition, pressure. They trade comfort for capability. Not because it feels good, because it works. They understand a ruthless truth. Until you can earn consistently, investing is irrelevant. The market will always exist. Opportunities will always cycle. But the window to build yourself closes faster than people realize. The broke argue against this. They say they need money now. They want shortcuts. They want upside without the grind. This mindset guarantees scarcity because markets punish impatience more severely than ignorance. The powerful accept delay. They understand patience is a weapon. In a world addicted to immediacy, the ability to wait is competitive advantage. Investing in yourself doesn't provide dopamine. There are no dashboards, no daily spikes, no public applause. The returns are quiet and delayed, but they're also durable. Someone who can turn small amounts into larger ones through skill alone is more powerful than any market. He's not dependent on conditions. He adapts to them. Markets don't save people. People save themselves. The goal is not to find the perfect investment. The goal is to become unavoidable, to reach a level of competence where opportunities seek you out, where capital flows toward your skill rather than the other way around. When this happens, investing becomes trivial, not because it's easy, because the operator is solid. Now let's address the most toxic influence in your life, the one you probably haven't admitted to yourself yet. Advice is never neutral. Every suggestion carries the weight of the life behind it. When you listen to someone, you're not just hearing words. You're absorbing standards, fears, limitations shaped by their outcomes. This is why listening to the powerless is slow suicide. Advice has value only when backed by results. The broke ignore this rule. They treat every opinion as equal. Family, friends, co-workers, strangers. Any voice becomes a guide. Familiarity is mistaken for credibility. Comfort replaces qualification. And so they take direction from people who have never built anything, never risked anything, never endured anything worth emulating. This is intellectual negligence. You wouldn't take medical advice from someone who never studied anatomy. You wouldn't take combat advice from someone who's never been in a fight. Yet people routinely take life and money advice from those who have failed in both, then wonder why progress stalls. The reason is simple. You inherit the ceiling of the people you listen to. The powerless normalize fear. They call risk reckless. They call ambition unrealistic. They label discipline obsession. Their language is defensive because their lives require justification. When you stay close to such people, their worldview becomes ambient. You absorb it without noticing. Over time, caution replaces hunger. Excuses replace standards. You begin to accept less. Not because you chose to, because it feels normal. Your environment determines your standards. Your standards determine behavior. Your behavior determines outcomes. Stay around those who accept scarcity, and scarcity becomes reasonable. The powerful are ruthless about this. They don't argue with the powerless. They simply disengage. They understand proximity is influence. Even passive exposure rewires expectations. If direct access to powerful people is unavailable, they create indirect proximity. They read what the successful read. They listen to how winners think. They study how those with authority make decisions. Exposure precedes elevation. This is not imitation. It's recalibration. Once your standards rise, mediocrity becomes intolerable. What once felt ambitious begins to feel insufficient. The broke resist this truth because it threatens social comfort. Cutting off bad advice often means creating distance from familiar people. This feels disloyal. But loyalty to stagnation is self-betrayal. No advice is better than bad advice. Silence is preferable to guidance that keeps you small. Those who rise learn to ask one brutal question before accepting counsel. Has this person built what I want to build? If the answer is no, the advice is irrelevant, regardless of intent. The powerless often react defensively when ignored. They feel dismissed. They accuse you of arrogance. In truth, they're uncomfortable witnessing choices they were unwilling to make. Your ambition forces them to confront their own inertia. Growth always creates distance. The powerful accept this cost without resentment. They understand leadership requires separation. You cannot rise while anchored to those who fear elevation. Listening to wrong voices doesn't cause immediate collapse. It causes gradual erosion. Standards soften. Urgency fades. Dreams shrink quietly until they fit inside other people's comfort. Those who accumulate power don't argue with limitations. They starve them of attention. They choose inputs carefully. They curate influence. They protect their standards as aggressively as their time, because they understand one final law. Who you listen to determines who you become. But there's an even more dangerous sabotage, the one that happens in your own home. The most dangerous enemy of ambition is not failure. It's proximity to someone who fears your growth. Power and money don't change people. They expose them. When resources expand, when options multiply, when direction sharpens, the true nature of a relationship becomes visible. The wrong partner doesn't oppose your goals openly. That would be too obvious. Instead, resistance appears as concern, as subtle doubt, as repeated questioning framed as care. Why are you pushing so hard? Is this really worth it? Can't you just slow down? These questions are not neutral. They're mechanisms of control. Growth shifts power dynamics. Wealth introduces autonomy. Autonomy threatens dependency. For someone whose identity depends on stability, predictability, emotional leverage, your expansion feels like danger. And people respond to perceived danger instinctively. They don't sabotage with arguments. They sabotage with erosion. Day after day, they inject uncertainty. Not enough to provoke confrontation, but enough to dull conviction. They frame ambition as imbalance, discipline as obsession, risk as irresponsibility. Over time, you begin to negotiate with your own drive. You compromise, you delay, you shrink. This is how potential is extinguished quietly. No one steals your future faster than the person who sleeps beside you, because the closest voice is always the loudest. When doubt comes from intimacy, it bypasses logic and embeds itself emotionally. You start protecting the relationship at the expense of your trajectory. This isn't about cruelty, it's about insecurity. Money represents power. Power represents options. Options represent freedom. And freedom threatens those who rely on sameness to feel safe. The wrong partner senses that as you grow, they may become optional. That fear breeds resistance. Highly capable individuals plateau, not because they lack ability, because their environment punishes progress. They choose harmony over momentum, peace over power, comfort over consequence. The right partner stabilizes rather than restrains. They multiply energy instead of draining it. They don't require you to shrink to maintain closeness. They understand growth is not abandonment, it's evolution. Such partnerships are rare because they require two self-secure individuals. Most people want love that soothes, not love that sharpens. But love that dulls ambition is not support. It's sedation. The broke ignore this and pay dearly. They tolerate resentment to avoid conflict. They downplay goals to keep peace. They negotiate their future in exchange for emotional comfort. Then wonder why their lives feel smaller each year. Relationships are not neutral structures. They're force multipliers. The right one accelerates progress. The wrong one applies constant drag. No business decision will cost you more than choosing the wrong partner. No bad investment will drain you faster than intimacy with insecurity. Those who accumulate power are ruthless here. They observe behavior, not promises. They measure support by outcomes, not words. They choose partners who respect momentum even when it's inconvenient. Building something meaningful is already difficult. Adding internal opposition makes it nearly impossible. The wrong partner doesn't destroy you in one moment. They make you betray yourself slowly. You abandon standards. You accept delays. You lower ambition until it no longer threatens the relationship. And by the time you notice, the fire is gone. And now, before I close this loop, before I give you the final piece that ties everything together, I need you to make a choice. You've watched this far. That alone separates you. Most people left when discomfort arrived, but watching doesn't change anything. Decision does. Subscribe, lock in, signal to yourself that you're done consuming and ready to commit. Because everything I'm about to say next only works if you're the kind of person who follows through. Are you? Here's the conclusion most people will refuse to accept. Poverty is not mysterious, it's not tragic, it's not imposed by fate. It's a condition maintained through choice, repeated, rationalized, defended. To remain broke, you need only do what feels good in the moment. Avoid discomfort, escape pressure, listen to voices that soothe rather than sharpen. Delay decisions until certainty appears. Choose harmony over truth, comfort over consequence. This path requires no discipline. That's why it's crowded. Wealth, real wealth, is not merely money. It's autonomy, it's leverage, it's the ability to decide without asking, to move without permission, to endure without reassurance. And it demands the opposite of what the average person is willing to tolerate. The rich are not better people. They're harder people. They endure when others retreat. They decide when others hesitate. They remain when others escape. They don't romanticize struggle, but they don't flee from it either. They accept pressure as permanent and build themselves accordingly. This is the central divide. The broke avoid pain and call it self-care. The powerful endure pain and call it preparation. Independence is not granted, it's seized. And it begins the moment you stop outsourcing responsibility for your choices, your standards, your future. Discipline is not about happiness, it's about control. Control over impulse, control over emotion, control over time. Those who lack control are ruled by moods, by opinions, by circumstance. Those who possess it rule quietly. Selectivity is the next requirement. You cannot listen to everyone. You cannot walk with everyone. You cannot share intimacy with everyone. Power demands discrimination of ideas, of environments, of people. This is not cruelty, it's survival. The average person wants to be liked. The powerful person wants to be effective. Truth is heavy. Most people cannot carry it. They prefer stories that absolve them. Unfair systems, bad luck, hidden enemies. These stories protect the ego but destroy the future. The few who rise reject them. They accept the unbearable truth that if their life hasn't changed, it's because they haven't changed enough. This acceptance is painful. It strips away excuses. It forces confrontation with weakness. But it also unlocks something rare: agency. Once you accept that poverty is not imposed but sustained, you reclaim power. You stop asking who is to blame and start asking what must be strengthened. You stop waiting for opportunity and start becoming worthy of it. This is the lesson most refuse to learn. The world does not reward virtue. It rewards capacity. It doesn't care how hard you tried. It responds only to what you can endure. Power doesn't announce itself. It accumulates silently while others seek comfort. By the time it becomes visible, it's already unassailable. This is why power is reserved for the few, not because it's guarded, because it's heavy. Most are unwilling to carry the weight of truth. Discipline, solitude, delayed reward. If you want to remain where you are, do nothing. Follow instinct. Seek approval. Choose ease. Stay surrounded by those who make you feel safe. If you want to rise, accept this final command. Endure. Decide. Select. Stay. The truth will not comfort you, but it will make you formidable. And when you become formidable, when you've rebuilt yourself into someone unrecognizable from who started this video, you won't need to chase wealth. It will have no choice but to follow you. This is where most people's journey ends. In understanding without action. In agreement without change. Don't let that be you. You know what to do next.